Hello. As Kieran's brother, Eilidh's arch-nemesis, and general all-round ham sandwich, I can safely say that the Generally Spooky History podcast is a podcast. And you should join their Patreon. I'm doing a thumbs up.
We are the Generally Spooky History podcast. I'm Eilidh, and I will be telling you the second half of our story this week. We started last week. I highly recommend you go back and listen to that one first, if you're a fan of context like I am. Kieran is over there, looking handsome, devilish, cozy. He's in a knitted jumper. He's also in knitted socks that I made him. He's busy right now, so he can't interrupt me, but God's he wonderful.
Well, that's nice of you. It was a nice change of pace from earlier, from that 1 minute ago at the start of the episode.
Look, I'm fickle.
I don't know what to say to that.
It's fickle. It's Scorpio season.
You sure are. The fuck I am!
And we take deep dives into Scotland's history, myths and legends.
Yes, we do. And
we have merch.
I'm
going to drive you up the fucking wall.
Whose idea was it to make Eilidh a coffee? It's clearly a terrible idea. What have I done? She made her own coffee. What has she done?
You don't know what I put in here. You left me unsupervised.
I was also in the kitchen.
I'm quite ill, and this is quite a strong coffee, so the impact is sweet.
An espresso in your coffee with 8 sugars. Well, we better play some music and we'll get stuck in.
Well, I have one notice that we can get to after music.
You can get to it before music.
Before music?
Yeah,
okay.
we do notices then music.
Well, our podcast merch was in an issue of Judge Dredd.
Yes, it was.
And if you're interested, it is issue 460 of the Judge Dredd magazine. And that's all I say, because you should check it out.
You should check it out.
It's like a little podcast Easter egg.
Yep.
I'm not even going to tell you what it is. You're just going to have to look for it if you're so inclined.
In an issue of a comic book, it is one of the coolest things ever.
Incredible.
Which is so fun that it's come out at the same time as the BA thing, because that was also the coolest thing ever.
British Airways.
British Airways. It's all happening. It's all happening at GSPHPHQ. That's why acronyms don't work.
My dad's always talking about his wife, my stepmom, and her having GCHQ moments.
Oh yeah, that's why it sounded familiar.
Yeah. He's always saying that she has GCHQ music.
See, it's hard.
GCHQ moments. Because I think her brain works in wonderful ways and patterns that we can't understand.
That no mortal could ever comprehend.
It's always very funny.
Always enjoyable.
So that was your GCHQ moment?
Yes. Well, let's play some music. So what are we here for today, Eilidh?
Well, Kieran, you probably don't remember because it was an hour ago, but we were talking about Pitmilly House last week.
Pitmilly House, I remember.
We got into all of the history of the house. And this week I promised you spooks.
Yep, we're getting spooky.
I promised. You had to wait. I do apologise. But I promised you spooks.
A whole episode just of spooks.
Right? It's spooky season, babe. I am continuing on my journey to make this the spookiest season that we've ever done.
The spookiest season to date.
And I'm excited about it.
I am too.
Would you like to give us a little recap on last week's episode in line with our TikTok Instagram series? No prep, no nothing. We just recorded it. Tell us about Pitmilly House, Kieran.
Well, I've had some practice now. I've had 31 attempts at practicing this.
What are the odds that you do this and it's exactly 60 seconds? Because that's what you've been conditioned to do over 30 times. You just naturally fall into a rhythm of 60 seconds.
Yep. Well, Pitmilly House is a house near St. Andrews, and there's been people living on that spot since the Stone Age, because there were some stone coffins found near there. Also something about the Bronze Age. That was relevant. Then there was the first records of it was from a woman named Ada de Warren.
Where on earth did that come from?
The joke I made.
Yeah, that tracks.
I back constructed it. Ada de Warren got the house as part of her dowry when she married King David's son.
No.
No. She married King David's son, though.
No, she gave birth to King David's son. No,
she wasn't married to King
David. What
David.
am I talking about?
I think you're wrong.
I am wrong. You got it right. She married Henry.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Because she was in line to be married to a king, and then the mother of a king, but she was never married to a king.
Good job, babe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. I had that mixed up in my head.
Then it went through some various hands until it came to the money pennies, which was hilarious. We've had lots of funny names. That's why I'm remembering them.
I will say that the land was never part of Ada's dowry. It was part of Eva's dowry. It came later. But then it passed to the money pennies. I just didn't want to leave that in there.
Yeah, that's fair. And they kept it for the next 600 years until they left for financial troubles and started renting it out. And then they rented it out to William Cumming.
Yes, they did.
Who was part of the Baccarat scandal.
Which we talked about at length last week.
Yeah. Could be the name of the episode, I suppose. That of part 1. Yes, he was the womanizer, terrible person, liar, scoundrel, dandy, as Eilidh put it.
He was a dandy.
He was a dandy. And then...
Although it is funny because earlier I did also refer to your brother as a scoundrel and a dandy.
You did indeed. For reasons that were valid.
It's just been fresh in my brain. I also called this guy William a scoundrel and a dandy.
And then he had it for a while, he and his family, who were all miserable because he was an asshole. And then it passed to Arthur, somebody who was born there and then was heir to a brewing fortune. Or he was either Arthur somebody or somebody Arthur.
We referred to him as Captain Geoffrey.
Captain Geoffrey. He was someone Arthur Geoffrey.
I think he was John Arthur.
John Arthur Geoffrey. Captain Geoffrey.
Just for the sake of keeping things consistent.
Yeah. Who had it while it was cold, dark, and full of rats.
No, it was nicer then. It was the guy before who had it when it was cold and dark and full of rats.
I see. He had it a bit nicer. And then it got bought by a farmer in the 60s and demolished after a fire.
Well, before that, it was a hotel. Yeah, it was sold around 1930, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was sold to the Jeffreys around 1930, I believe. And then in 1947, it was sold on and became a hotel. And that's where we left things last week. In 1967, Pitmilly House burned down.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Supposedly.
It was bought and then on purpose completely demolished.
So I'm curious.
All the stones were used to make new buildings.
In the surrounding area. And I was really surprised that's where we finished.
I wanted you to be. I did kind of lead you a little bit as if the place was still standing.
Yeah, and because you said the spooks are more modern day for us. But that, for us, that could be the last 300 years and it's still quite modern.
Yeah, they're not in the present. They're not in like the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, it's more modern day.
Yep. It's because weird, since there's all these like digital cameras, ghost sightings have just gone way down.
I don't know. I think it's blown up. I'd say it's the opposite.
You think?
Well, why does this podcast exist if it didn't?
True that.
You know? Ghost hunting is like crazy popular.
It's because I see all this footage and I'm like, well, that's nothing. That's what this is.
Well, I'm not saying anything about the quality of this evidence. I'm just saying there's a lot of it out there.
Okay.
With the advent of digital technology.
And if you're not familiar with this podcast, Eilidh's far more of a believer than I am as the resident skeptic.
But Kieran's seen a ghost, so that actually makes him more of a believer than me.
Eilidh winds me up with this, like when we're not recording, and I always take the bait. This just comes up in conversation.
You stop taking the bait, I'll stop bringing it up.
It's always been my problem.
It's you and Struan, both of you. It's too easy.
Mm-hmm.
But you did see a ghost.
Well, I didn't. I saw something. But
you saw a ghost?
No, not a ghost. So, where are we starting? Where do our spooks begin?
Well, we're looking at the 30s and 40s
Okay.
for this one, 1930s and 1940s. And the kind of reason I came across Pitmilly House was when I was doing my research for another episode, which is how this usually happens, into the SPR.
Yep. The Society of Cyclical Research.
Psychical, not cyclical.
Psychical. Oh, I see.
It's a subtle difference.
It was
but
close.
The Society for Cyclical Research could be very funny.
Yes. Psychical.
If they're just looking into the effects of spinning round in a really tight circle and hoping you don't fall over.
It's probably got more merit.
Kieran came fighting today.
I have my fighting wool knitted jumper on today.
It's going to cushion me from your blows of facts.
Cushion me from your blows of bullshit.
Yeah, the SPR. When I was researching them last time, I was looking at some of the other cases that they had looked into. Because that's what they do. They investigate the paranormal and the psychical. And I came across them talking about Pitmilly House as another mansion in Scotland that seemed to have a poltergeist problem. Much like Ballychan.
Yes. That's interesting, because with it being knocked down in the 60s, it's not somewhere you'd go and visit.
You can't now.
Yeah, if it's just a farm, presumably.
But they were researching it back then.
Yeah, so good find.
Right.
Good find.
I'm going to start talking to you about what people claim to experience and see.
Okay.
And then a little bit about the involvement of the SPR and why it is that this case reached the media in the end. It became somewhat of a spectacle, but I don't think it's that well known.
It's not somewhere I'd heard of.
No. So I'm going to tell you a bit about that.
Sounds good.
If that suits you. No more cliffhangers. We're going to finish it this week.
We are spooking to the end. Otherwise, my wife and I are going to stop speaking.
Generally spooking, am I right?
Ooh.
Ladies. During the 30s and 40s, there were lots of strange things going on at Pitmilly House. Things that the Jeffrey family, who were living there at the time, with their staff, if you remember.
And their Bentleys.
Yes. Couldn't explain. And definitely didn't enjoy.
Okay.
They weren't happy at all these things going on.
Well, I'm sure they consider themselves far too rich and important to be haunted.
But they didn't want it. It seemed like they were genuinely disturbed.
Oh, okay.
The timeline will jump around a little bit because when the haunting was happening, they didn't go public. It wasn't until later that details started coming out. In 1942, a journalist called J.W. Herries published an article in Psychic Science.
Okay.
Which I got to read the original of. I found it online. And he wrote about what had been happening at Pitmilly because he visited the house himself and he spoke to a source who was close to the family who also claimed to experience things there. So I'm going to start by reading you what Herries wrote.
Sounds good.
In the spring of 1940, I was asked to visit a mansion house in the east of Scotland in which disturbances had taken place, which seemed to be of a poltergeist nature. It's worth saying here that Herries didn't name the house. Remember we talked a bit about that with Ballychan?
Yes, that was always the preferred approach from the homeowners, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, just to give them a bit of privacy. I don't think Herries was with the SBR. I think he was interested in the topic and he was a journalist, but he's following the same procedure. He's not naming Pitmilly.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But we know that's what he's talking about.
We know.
The whole of the pictures in the house had been found on one occasion on the floor, and all the pictures containing likenesses of the owner had been smashed. There was a considerable number of these, photographs of the owner as a child and afterwards at various ages and in army uniforms. Captain Jeffrey.
Yes.
The wife of the owner had told my informant that on one occasion, after leaving the drawing room, in which everything was in order, she heard a thump and returning immediately found the furniture in the room thrown about and most of it in the middle of the floor.
See, Here we go. This is very similar to the Cursed Baronet
Right?
episode. And I didn't believe it then. And it's similar time periods, actually, as I thought. Cut off my own thought there. Save my bullshit till you finish the story.
Shall I keep going?
Please.
There was a curious episode relating to billiard balls. The proprietor's wife had noticed eccentric movement of these billiard balls, and she took a red and a white ball and in the darkness hid them in the soil in the garden. Soon afterwards, a white billiard ball appeared on the floor of her room, rolling about in an unaccountable manner. She went to where the balls had been hidden and found that the white ball was now missing. It was this ball which apparently had reappeared in her room.
Interesting. So the proprietor, so it's a hotel just now.
No, I think they're referring to the owners.
Okay.
It was a hotel from 1947.
Ah, I see. And I think
the Jeffreys were living there.
I just hear the word proprietor and think
Yeah, it
hotel.
makes sense, but from everything else, he's talking about the Jeffrey family.
Mm-hmm.
On another occasion, when she was concerned about her husband's health, he had been given a sleeping draught by the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
She was outside his room listening to hear if he was breathing properly. Her own room was at the end of a short flight of stairs off the passage, a little beyond where she was sitting. A large work basket, which stood in the corner of her room, came down the short stairway and emptied itself in front of her. She immediately investigated, but found no one in that part of the house.
It's pretty spooky.
On another occasion, a chest of drawers moved about in her presence. She seized a cushion and placed it against the chest of drawers and tried to prevent it moving further. The cushion was snatched away, and the chest of drawers moved with a force that she could not resist.
Oh my god. I'm just imagining if this was me and you, and I was the husband who was sick, having a snooze, and then I woke up and I'm all groggy because I've had a sleeping tablet sleep, which isn't a good sleep, and you start telling me all this, and I'm just like, what are you talking?
How long was I out?
What are you talking about? I was the one who was sick and hallucinating. Like, what have you been seeing?
It's creepy.
It's creepy.
In the first week of March, shortly before the day fixed for my visit, the house was damaged by fire, which seemed to originate more or less simultaneously in 20 different rooms. The local fire brigade was called out, and the outbreak or outbreaks were soon under control. The marks of the fire were still very obvious when I visited the house. An extraordinary feature was the points of origin. In some of the rooms, the fires seemed to have originated in an upper corner at the height of the ceiling.
Ooh.
There seemed to be no possible explanation why any ordinary fire should break out at these points. It may here be stated that a claim was made on an insurance company, and after a full investigation, they decided to settle the claim. We are going to revisit that in more depth.
Well, that's unusual, isn't it?
Very creepy.
Mm-hmm.
I visited the house on March 19th, 1940, along with Mr. J.B. McIndoe, Glasgow, and Mrs. McCallum, Glasgow, who is well known in Scotland as a direct voice medium. The visit, so far as phenomena are concerned, was practically blank.
So what does that mean, sorry?
Nothing.
They didn't get anything?
Nothing.
Interesting.
And he says Mrs. McCallum is well known. I haven't been able to find anything about her, other than she was a medium.
She was a medium.
In the course of the visit, a séance was held by Mrs. McCallum, in which various voices were heard, but there seemed to be nothing very relative to the manifestations. I was informed some months later that the manifestations in the house, although occasionally abnormal occurrences were noted, had become much less troublesome. There seems little doubt, from the number of direct and indirect witnesses, and from consideration of the whole circumstances, that the manifestations in this Scottish mansion house belong to the poltergeist order. Supernormal power was used in the shifting of furniture and throwing about of missiles, and there is evidence of intelligence behind the manifestations. These occurrences appear to be a matter of knowledge and comment in the district. Generally, the attitude of the owner of the house and his wife was one of annoyance and distaste for the abnormal happenings, and they were extremely anxious that some method should be found of putting an end to them.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that damage occurred to household goods to the extent of about £400 by breakages as well as the result of the fire indicates that the owners had good reason to wish the manifestations at an end.
Yeah. Do you think that one day in the future digital archaeologist will find this podcast and give it a listen and say there's evidence of intelligence there.
No.
From you, not from me, of course.
No.
If the female host seems to show evidence of intelligence, the male co-host, not so much.
I don't think they'll find any. What do you think? I gave you a lot of information there.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, we should take our time because there is more to come. That's the end of this article, but I do have more to offer.
That's not just like, and that's the episode. Like, oh, what?
20 minutes in, that's it, people. Aren't you glad you waited a week?
Well, my first thought was Mrs. McCallum, the medium.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite nice that she didn't notice anything the first time. I find that quite reassuring because I feel like we've talked about before with the YouTube ghost hunter phenomena. We're like, oh, I've just moved flat again, and this one's haunted too. I'm like, oh, well, that's convenient. So for a medium to be like, yeah, like I often hear things, see things, feel things, but now I'm getting nothing. Like, yeah.
Especially if you're there in a professional capacity, you don't want to disappoint.
Well, exactly. There's an expectation, and it's not clear she was being paid. I kind of like getting the impression she wasn't being paid to be there, but
I couldn't tell you.
Hard to say. So I quite enjoyed that she didn't initially see anything. Curious what happened in the seance. But
well, I would need to look into direct voice mediums more. I'm guessing she speaks and something's speaking through her in different voices, because that was quite a common phenomenon in spiritualist circles, that you go to a seance and they would speak with a different voice.
I see.
The voice of a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it would be someone else speaking.
Oh, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Because remember, this is the age of spiritualism.
I was trying to think if we were still in that like golden age of kind of Victorian spiritualism. It's kind of towards the end of it.
This is post-Victorian.
Yeah.
This is heading into World War II. We're getting there. But yeah, spiritualism was massive. Helen Duncan was in the 1930s.
I would say she was, because she meddled in World War II, didn't she?
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But
no.
This was her time, and we had Balakan House.
Mm-hmm.
Poltergeists were just rampant.
Yes. It's just, to me, so unbelievable to like that you had to like fight your dresser to stay down because it was trying to move of its own accord. I'm just like, what?
Mental.
Absolutely mental.
What do you make of the billiard ball?
Curious. Very curious. Because my first instinct is like, well, are you just lying? But in this instance, there's no financial gain from lying.
Well, they've only lost money.
Well,
and they're not running it as a haunted attraction.
Very true. So, yeah, it's hard to say what to think of it. Because there's no explanation. And they're like, oh, she just buried one by accident. Like, that doesn't seem likely. If she's just burying the two of them. But maybe, I don't know, maybe lost in translation somewhere from retellings from person to person. Perhaps got a little exaggerated. Because I feel the point where it stops being believable is if the balls were moving erratically. That would be pretty strange. Because if they were rolling, not with the wind, say, you'd be pretty confused. What do you think?
I don't know. I think I have a heavier dose of skepticism when it comes to this era. Because I feel like people's understandings of like what's supernatural and paranormal was very different. So I feel like we need to look at it in a different way.
Yeah.
But that's a really weird story to bury this in the garden and then have it rolling around your bedroom floor.
It is, isn't it? What about the fires? What do you think about the fires originating from the top corners?
Well, I'd quite like to talk about that in more depth in a little bit, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I do have some theories for you. I spoke to India about it. I didn't have time to speak to my stepdad, although I should have, because he has a lot more knowledge in this area than India. Sorry, India.
He's a firefighter, not an arsonist.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd quite like to talk about that in more depth later on, if that's okay, so we can really get into it.
Yep.
Just keep in mind that there was this fire.
Put a pin in that.
Yes. Much later, in 1967, Ivan Jeffrey, who was Captain Jeffrey's son, spoke publicly about what the family had experienced while they were living at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So much later, and apologies because it does kind of mess with the timeline, but people release stuff at different times. Yeah. And here's some of what he said. He gave an interview with BBC Radio 4. which was brand new.
Brand new.
Mm-hmm. He said, "The first one was when I was comparatively young. A piece of the household's coal appeared on the dining room table in the midst of dinner.
That would be strange.
Out of place. I'm assuming on a white tablecloth.
You have to assume so.
On my first leave during the war in about 1940, I was greeted by a Chinese bronze ornament which sailed across the hallway and impinged on my tum-tum."
Wonderful word choice.
And that's what he said.
Impinged on my tum-tum. Hit him in his tummy?
Yeah, I'm assuming it sailed across the hall and like hit into him.
Yeah.
Like, into his torso.
Into his tum-tum.
Mm-hmm. My parents really became worried when the poltergeist started doing damage, breaking valuable ornaments. Things disappeared, never to be seen again.
Mm-hmm.
Ornaments used to fall off mantelpieces. Wardrobes used to crash to the floor. Pictures used to fall off the walls. Hot coals made their appearance in different rooms and set fire to curtains.
Oh no.
Fires started in several different places at once. Fortunately, the outbreaks were got under control by the staff, although the fire brigade was called. So we're talking about that specific incident again.
Yep.
My parents called in a gentleman of religion who came and exorcised parts of the house, and holy water was sprinkled in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
The sitting rooms downstairs, which we sat in, probably bore the brunt.
Oofed. How many fires could you have before, I don't know, you just bring in more safety measures, you know?
I guess, but the way that they're starting is very strange.
It is
in
very
ways you
strange.
can't predict.
No.
How safe could you be to preempt fires that shouldn't start? Really?
I think I put something together.
Okay, do tell. You look very excited.
Haha. Is Captain Jeffrey, the one with the daughter who didn't go to boarding school, was homeschooled and was very unhappy?
Yes.
Mm.
You remember I asked you to put a pin in that last episode, did
I
ya?
have remembered.
Okay.
That never happens.
Do you want to sit on it? Do you want to talk about it?
Well, it happened because talking about like coal appearing where it shouldn't, something being thrown at you and you're not seeing it. I'm like, is there just a younger sibling who's really unhappy doing it? Oh, there is a younger sibling who's really unhappy.
Well remembered.
Thank
I
you.
was burying that one so we can come back to it.
So you could reveal it later.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
Thank you.
Good detective brain.
It's because I had to recall the episode. That's what's done it. Anyway, I will sit in that for later, like a little ostrich.
Ostriches are famously big.
Oh, I'm going to sit in it like a little ostrich. A little happy ostrich. Sitting on my little nugget of truth.
That should be on a t-shirt. Or a children's book, The Little Happy Ostrich. Gotta write that book. Rhiannon, get on it. The Little Happy Ostrich.
So, this happy little ostrich wants to hear more.
So that was Ivan. So that's Captain Jeffrey's son,
Mm-hmm.
who talked about all these things.
Yeah.
And the things that he experienced and his family went through.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ivan need for some fame.
Kieran!
Such pun-friendly names this
You're
episode.
on fire, much like the house. You're literally burning the house down. Ivan also said that some of the soldiers who were stationed at Pitmilly, because remember I said it was used during the war?
Yes.
The Wrens were there for a while, and then later it was a hospital, and there were Polish soldiers who were stationed there.
Mm-hmm.
Odin, shut up! Some of the soldiers who were stationed at Pitmilly claimed to see bayonets stuck in the walls.
That would be a sight to see.
That would be awful.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm so compelled by that because soldiers are so disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
generally.
Yeah, yeah.
Why would they lie? Because they'd look terrible.
Oh, they would look terrible. I guess during the war, it depends, like, when they were recruited and how they were recruited. So if they'd been soldiers for a long time, you would be super disciplined.
Well,
But
I guess if they're new.
if you were a farmer 3 weeks ago and now you're a soldier, not shoulder.
But when you have something to prove, I'm going to be a good soldier.
Yeah. I don't really know. I don't really know what attitudes were like. I get generally what you mean
Yeah,
for soldiers and military men, but during World War II, I know it was a lot of people who became soldiers for the
not
war.
career soldiers.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Some of the soldiers who were stationed there also claimed to see the ghost of Captain Jeffrey.
Oh, shit.
Because Captain Jeffrey died in 1941.
Oh.
So some of them claimed to see him around the house.
Oh, my God. This does not sound like a restful place.
No.
To go as a... It was a hospital, wasn't it?
Yeah, for a little while.
Right? It's not where you want to go to recover.
And like they recognised him.
Oh, because there'd be pictures of him about, wouldn't there? Ooh.
Which is awful.
That is awful.
Imagine just seeing, or not even seeing him and like him looking like a ghost and being like kind of greenish and see-through.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine just seeing a guy walk past and being like, you're dead. I know who you are. I recognise you. And I know that you're dead.
That would not be...
just walked past, completely corporeal.
Wouldn't be a good feeling.
In the middle of the day.
Oh yeah, even worse. I assumed it was like from your bed at night time, but that would be much worse.
Like, that's creepy.
That's creepy.
And it seems like such a little like anecdote, like claim to see the goat. But if you really break that down into what that means, that's fucking creepy.
That is fucking creepy. That would stay with you.
Yeah. Other stories included, quote, the bishop who came to conduct an exorcism on a cold day sitting in front of the fire and having his hat leap from his lap into the flames. A woman dressed in green was seen in and around the house.
Oh, yeah.
One particularly bizarre story had a pair of gloves being held up to a fire as if filled by invisible hands.
Oh, that's a weird one.
The same witness walking down the stairs saw the portraits lift on their chains and rotate. Unquote.
Ooh.
Can we talk about the glove hands for a second? Hand. I have never, ever heard of a story like that before.
No, that one's brand new. But you can so perfectly picture it, can't you?
You know exactly what that looks like because I feel like everyone does the same motion. Warm your palms.
Yeah, you warm your palms and then maybe like rub your palms together.
Like, that's creepy.
Super creepy. Ooh. You can picture just the Addams Family hand type thing.
Yeah, thing.
Yes.
Do you know when they were filming Wednesday for Netflix, it's actually someone's hand?
Yes.
That they used for Thing.
I knew that because you told me.
They didn't animate it. There's actually someone who was there to be Thing. Thing's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's fun.
Oh yeah, I was quite troubled by the hands. That's creepy.
That is creepy. But you know what's weird? I think we've had boots before. I feel we've had boots walking to make sounds. I feel like that rings a bell.
That happened recently, didn't it? Was that Pool House?
No idea.
I'm sure we talked about that really recently.
Yeah. But boots walking is somehow easier to imagine than gloves floating in the air.
Weirdly, gloves, it's very intimate. It's like someone's hands. It makes it different to someone's feet.
Yeah.
It feels very purposeful and very personal. I don't know. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, definitely. It's enough to make you stop and go, ew.
And it's a bold ghost that messes with a bishop's hat.
Very true. What does a bishop's hat look like?
I don't know if this was just a personal hat.
Okay, that's fine.
Or if it was ceremonial dress.
Because I tried to picture it like a bishop's hat, like a pope's hat.
Well, I don't know if he would have worn that to come and visit the house. Because I feel like that's for mass.
Yeah, it's just a hat belonging to the bishop.
Thankfully, people usually get in touch about things of this nature because people know a lot more about Catholicism than we do. So if you know for sure what kind of hat he would have been wearing, you can let us know. But my understanding was he was there on a visit at the house. I don't think he would have been in formal, the big formal get-up. Yeah,
that's true. I just always picture bishops leading a mass.
Yeah. So I think that's when they would wear that. I feel like.
Yeah.
So what do you think so far?
Well, the soldiers, I'm not compelled by.
No?
No, because they were there recovering. So you've got PTSD, you've got fever hallucinations, You've got whatever else they're trying to recover from affecting things.
I guess those are all compelling reasons.
So they may well be seeing things, but I've seen things in a fever and it's pretty messed up. And if you don't understand that can be a thing, it would be very easy to get like spooked by it. And like seeing the ghost of Captain Jeffrey himself, if you've seen his picture around, that would then be like compel you to see him walking past. Not compel you, but
oh, it'd be so creepy.
But doesn't make it any less awful.
So creepy. Even if it was a hallucination. Like, that makes me want to be sick. That would be so scary. Even if you knew it wasn't real. Because you know what that's like. You've had that. Even when you know it's not real. It's awful.
In that moment, it is truly terrible.
So I'm just imagining what that would be like, and it makes me like nauseous. What?
Yeah.
No ta.
So for the context, if you didn't know, I had a really bad fever once, and once saw myself standing at the end of my own bed looking at me. And it was awful, because I got out of bed, because I think I was opening a window, so I walked around the bed, got back into bed, and then looked up, and I like watched myself doing it, and then looking at me. And it was pretty awful, but I was just that feverish.
Mm-hmm. You were so ill. I'm sure we've talked about that fever before.
We have, but I just thought...
this is why it comes up all the time.
a quick recap if we hadn't. So that makes me skeptical of the soldiers' experiences.
I think that's a very well-reasoned argument.
But the other stuff's pretty weird.
Right.
And I can see why a bishop would throw his own fat... Not throw his own fat into the fire.
His own fat.
His own... I don't see why a bishop would throw his own hat into the fire to, like, prove a point, you know?
No, I don't think so.
Because if it's, like, jumped out of his lap into the fire, there's a chance he just went, whee! But
I guess the reason there is that there was a gust and it blew the hat into the fire.
But pretty weird. Pretty spooky.
All of it's pretty weird and spooky so far.
It's given a very creepy vibe to the house.
Mm-hmm. Especially because it's an old mansion.
Yeah. So this is all taking place after the Jeffreys.
No, this is while they're there.
This is while they're there. Cool.
This is between the 30s and the 40s.
Cool.
The guy who wrote the first article, he visited in 1940.
Yes.
It's the year the fire happened. It had been happening for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
But it was later that things were published. And Ivan spoke to Radio 4 in 1967.
Cool.
Following me? I know it's confusing.
I'm with you.
So the Jeffreys were pretty troubled. Like Ivan said, they called clergymen to exorcise the house.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted whatever was in there gone. They also called in psychics to try and get some answers or to figure out what they could do to get rid of whatever was in the house.
Yep.
The psychics were just as troubled as they were by what they found. They couldn't really give them anything. But it was the fire that Harry's wrote about and Ivan referenced that really piqued the SBR's interest in this case.
Okay.
From what I can see.
Oh, I forgot the journalist guy wasn't necessarily part of the SBR.
No, I don't think he was a member, but he was a spiritualist and he was interested in the subject matter. But he was a journalist rather than a member.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what piqued their interest, which is why I want to talk about it kind of separately. We're going to talk about the fire. So it was a real fire. It did happen. This isn't speculation about evidence. This fire did happen. And it affected about 20 rooms of the house.
Wow.
And from what investigators could tell, the fire broke out in each room at the same time.
That's strange.
Which is unusual. And then Harry's is speaking in the article about how the fires seem to start in the upper corners of the rooms. Not in fireplaces or furniture near fireplaces that were lit.
What would cause that?
I don't know. I really don't know.
No.
Because I talked to India about it a little, just like casually rather than professionally. But
also a firefighter, not an arsonist.
Yes. And she wasn't really sure either. She said it sounded quite strange, but like backdraft might be to blame, or she talked about something called a flashover.
What's backdraft first?
I will need the proper explanation, because saying fucking terrible probably isn't enough.
No, I know it's a movie.
It is a movie. So basically, if backdraft happens, you have a room that's on fire and has been on fire for a while. So the fire that's in there has used up all of the oxygen in that room.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is someone goes into that room, opens a window or a door. It causes an explosion because there's suddenly more oxygen for the fire.
Yep.
And it just explodes.
Got you.
So you have to know, for like India's perspective or firefighter's perspective, you have to be aware of what might be on the other side of a closed door, because if you open that, you're a goner.
Mm-hmm.
So she gave that, obviously she doesn't know, but she's like, oh, like maybe that would cause it to spread from room to room. She also talked about something called a flashover, which happens, it's basically when, again, a fire's been going in a room for a bit, everything's hot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something about the thermal radiation in that room that can suddenly just cause everything that could be combustible to become combustible and explode all at once.
Oh, well,
so
that's
there's
awful.
just this big... When I was looking at the video she sent me, it's kind of reminiscent of the footage of like atom bombs. You know, where you get that really bright light.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of what happens. Everything just explodes all at once and catches fire. And then the whole place is just burning. Because usually when it starts, you have the smoke burning up at the ceiling, if it's in a room. So you have the actual fire. You have the smoke from the fire that has started to burn.
Yep.
And then everything just goes woof and catches.
Yeast.
But it might not be those things. We were just talking speculatively.
Yeah. Might be ghosts.
It might be ghosts.
Might be ghosts.
Well, basically, India didn't know. And I didn't have time to chat to Mark, unfortunately, because we're on such a tight deadline.
There's not enough time.
If I talk to him about it after the fact, I'll include it just in another episode. We'll chat about it. Because fire investigation is part of what he does.
Oh, you have to listen to the rest of the season.
But there wasn't any clear explanation as to what started these fires. They couldn't say. But what makes this unusual and really important as potential evidence of a haunting is that the Jeffries insurance company paid out.
Yeah, you said that with a tone that implied it was like big news.
Well, for an insurance company to pay out on a house fire, you can't be at fault.
Okay, yes.
So, insurance company decided that the Jeffries weren't at fault.
But
they also claimed that the fire wasn't accidental.
Now that's interesting.
They couldn't decide on like the definitive, this is what started this fire, this is what happened. But they paid out the money. But they didn't say it was an accident.
That is so curious.
So, this is important to the story because later, by other people, rather than anyone at the time, it was taken as proof that the insurance company had basically said poltergeists and ghosts are real because we're paying out on the damage done by a poltergeist.
That is super interesting.
See?
Super interesting.
And this is in 1940, so this is a long time ago.
Ooh. And you know insurance people don't like paying out if they don't have to.
Nope.
Well, that's curious.
In the original article, Harry's said that there was £400 of damage. That's not as much as the insurance paid out. It didn't pay out £400. He's talking about the damage the fire caused and like other damages that had been done.
Yes.
Total damage cost was about £400. I think the insurance maybe paid out 50.
All right.
But this is in the 1940s, so it was worth more.
Yeah.
But there's discrepancies. I just wanted to be clear that he gave that figure, but that's total damages.
Yeah. From all the various things that got smashed.
Yeah.
For instance.
But yeah, they paid out.
Dang. Well, now that is interesting, isn't it?
Right.
The top corner of the room. It's very, like, demon-esque, like demon in a horror movie, isn't it?
You think?
Like that, like Christian demon coming from hell kind of thing.
Or like Train Spotting, where they're crawling on the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
One of them burning up in the corner. It's strange.
It's pretty spooky.
Especially since that seemed to be the case in 20 rooms.
Yeah.
It's always in the upper part.
Bizarre.
So I don't know, wiring, I guess?
I wondered wiring, but Wasn't really sure. Maybe 20 rats spontaneously combusted at the same time. Maybe.
They got into that brewing company's beer. And just fucked shit up.
There it is. Solved it. Cracked the case.
Yeah, that's why I want to talk about the fire kind of on purpose, because this is very, very interesting.
Yes.
And perhaps more concrete than stuff we've had before.
Hmm.
I couldn't get the insurance documents. They don't seem to exist anymore.
That's fair. They'd be kept privately, really, wouldn't they?
Might be released after a certain number of years.
I don't know.
But I couldn't find them.
But it assures you that due diligence was done, though, doesn't it? The fact there was insurance documents and things.
Well, they got the money, so...
Yeah.
It went through the rigmarole of insurance policy. It's so weird.
So weird.
So Harry's went to the house, the journalist, spoke to his trusted source, and then the SPR became interested in the case because he went to visit in 1940.
Yeah.
They sent Lord Charles Hope to investigate the claims.
Mm-hmm.
I could not find anything about him, and I don't know why it was so hard. I don't know if it's just because I was ill. Maybe I'm going to look at it after the fact and be like, oh, well, it's this guy, obviously.
But it was just a bit hopeless.
Oh, Kieran! Could not find anything.
Oh, well.
Drove me nuts. Hope spoke to the same trusted source that Harry's had spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
And although they don't always name him, it seems to have been a man called Gilbert Hole, who was the Jeffrey family's lawyer.
Oh, yes.
Now, here's where we run into some trouble.
Okay.
I think. What?
Who was Hole speaking to?
Well, he spoke to Harry's, the journalist, and now he's speaking to Hope.
Ah, I see.
I don't think that's good. I don't think that looks good for our story. No. He's the family lawyer. Mm-hmm. He should not be reaching out and talking to people about family business.
Very true.
And worse than that, he seemed to insert himself into a lot of it.
Oh, no.
Which isn't good. But he's also the one who represented the Jeffreys when they made their insurance claim.
It's not good, is it?
He's muddying everything.
Yeah.
Because he shouldn't be talking to people.
What are you doing? Yeah, because the Harry's guy mentioned the informant.
This is
Hole.
Gilbert. Old Gilbert.
Old Gilbert putting holes in this story.
But he represented them, so I feel like he shouldn't be talking about a case that he represented them for, even when it's done.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think he's under any obligation to not speak, but it's not a good look.
Yeah, well, it's... My lawyer went to the press about me.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound good, does it?
Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
So they both spoke to Gilbert. Hope claimed when he was doing his investigation that Harry's was, quote, very gullible, unquote. But from what I can see, he believed a lot of the same things that Harry's believed had happened. So I don't really know what point he was trying to make. This guy's a twat. I'm the real deal.
Yeah, I guess so. I just guess cementing your own credibility by shitting on the other guy.
It's strange because he doesn't come in and argue every point that Harry's made.
No.
He doesn't agree with everything. They each have their own opinions on things, but weird move.
Why bring it up?
Weird move. Gilbert Hole, the lawyer, claimed that while he was staying at the house, a set of matchsticks mysteriously arranged themselves out of an ashtray and along the arm of the chair he was sitting in.
He claimed that happened to him?
Yes.
A chair he was sitting in?
Yes. So Hole was sitting in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
He had been smoking. There were matchsticks in an ashtray. He looked away. He looked back, and all of the matchsticks were arranged along the arm of his chair.
Oh, wow. This other guy's gullible, I see.
Well, that's the thing. He told everyone this story. Mm-hmm. So lots of people who investigated the house and lots of people who wrote about it report this story coming from an informant. And it's this guy telling everyone. Because he wanted everyone to know what happened to him.
Yeah. Oh.
And that he was involved.
It's just always... There's always just ego thrown in and people chasing clout and fame and... Well, not even fame, just kind of respect within their circles.
That or I guess just fame.
Yeah, I guess it's just fame and status.
Lorne McIntyre, I think rightfully, refers to Gilbert Hole as astonishingly indiscreet in his book, and I think that's completely fair.
Yeah.
Because for a lawyer, that is astonishingly indiscreet.
That is. Oh, so weird.
Right?
So bizarre.
So you have all the evidence of the fire, and I think it is quite compelling. But then you have things like this, you're like, yeah, I just don't trust you.
I know. It lessens it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. I have what McIntyre wrote about Harry's and Hope's investigations of Pitmilly, if you'd like to hear.
Harry's Hope and Holes.
Right.
It's like a law firm in itself. Hi, welcome to Harry's Hope and Holes. We work for you.
All Hope and Harry's.
He wishes.
Should put that onto like a mug and a t-shirt as if it's a real company. So if you want to take it into your office to pretend that you have this mug from this really prestigious law firm, hit us up, we'll make it for you. So we have the little happy ostrich and Hole, Hope and Harry's.
Okay.
Harry's Hope and Hole.
Harry's Hope and Hole. Everyone wants to be first author.
I'll have to figure that one out. Anyway, here's what McIntyre wrote. Harry's was convinced that the poltergeist was genuinely paranormal, with an intelligence behind it, like we read. Hope's verdict was much more tentative and was essentially open. He did not think there was collusion, yet no one person seems to have been present during all of the events. Hope thought the easiest solution was that Captain Jeffrey began it, and Vibeke, Vibeke, she was Danish. She was one of the members of staff who worked for the family. Vibeke was frightened, then realizing he was responsible when he was away, she also faked events to get even, which frightened him in turn. Surprisingly, given that he was supposed to have witnessed paranormal events, Hole told Hope that he thought that Captain Jeffrey had faked some. Presumably, Hole would have told Harry's and Price, who we're going to talk about, the same thing, but neither mentions it as it would not have suited the genuine poltergeist narrative.
I like that theory.
Right?
It's just people trolling each other.
My dad would do that.
Well, I would do that.
You probably have done that at some point. Now's the time to come clean.
Nothing to admit over here.
You can see it happening.
Yes.
Especially like the member of staff realizing and being like, this fucker.
The back and forth
I'll
thing.
show him. He thinks he's just got me licked. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him good.
Yeah. Well, especially if it's just having a bit of fun, isn't it?
To them, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure to the paranormal investigators who came along, it wasn't. No. Funny. But I think it's interesting that Hole told this to Hope, but the other two that he spoke to didn't say anything. But I think it is safe to assume that he would have told them all the same stuff.
Yeah, I think so. So Hole and Hope, can I clarify who's who again?
Gilbert Hole is the family lawyer.
Hole is a lawyer.
Lord Charles Hope was a member of the SPR.
Yes.
We call him Gilbert and Charles if you'd prefer.
Yeah, that would be easier.
Cool.
So Gilbert's
the lawyer.
The lawyer. Charles is the investigator.
Yes.
Got you. I get myself confused.
Yeah, apologies. They are very similar. I should have thought of that. Because everyone in what they've written about Pitmilly, they refer to them as their surname. So I've got it ingrained in my brain.
Yeah, you've been reading all about Hole and Hope.
Yep. Harry's Hole and Hope.
Most people are better with names than I am. I'm sure it's just me.
No, I think it's probably best practice not to have Hope and Hole.
Frankly, they should have got better names. It's very
I mean, that's just a good motto for life, really. Don't have hope and hole.
Don't have hope for hole.
McIntyre goes on. He's apologies, I feel like I'm reading to you a lot, but I think that's part of the interest because it was investigated paranormally.
I think so.
Back then. But McIntyre's book is more recent. He published in 2011. But he says, however, even this, Charles thought, was not satisfactory, and a scenario to cover all of the phenomena would require at least one more participant, or self-deception by large numbers of people. Charles adds the tidbit that Mrs. Jeffrey was not positively disposed towards her husband, who drank heavily. Captain Jeffrey had seen ghosts in a previous house, and his wife considered him to be psychic. On the other hand, Charles speculated that Mrs. Jeffrey might be a focus, torn between duty to husband and a desire to be away from him. There certainly seemed to have been a lot of emotions swirling around, perhaps including Vibeka's for her largely absent husband. So more theories, more intrigue, more possibilities.
Yeah. I did wonder, because they slept in separate rooms. It said
That was quite common, though.
Was it?
At the time, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Or more common, anyway.
I wonder if it meant things were a bit tense between them.
No, I think it was fairly common that you had your own room. Especially if you had the space and the money.
Well, yeah, if you've got that many rooms anyway.
Yeah, I think it was pretty common. I didn't think twice about that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get my own room.
I mean, that'd be nicer than you kicking me out of my room.
This is mine now.
Mine. Yeah, so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of finger wagging and blame and.
Well, not necessarily, because I don't think the people living there are blaming each other. I think it's the people coming in are looking at everyone going, it could be you, and it could be you, and it could be you.
And they're going, it could be you who's making it up, aren't they?
But then Charles also has the theory that maybe Mrs. Jeffrey is the cause of it because she's so conflicted and she has all of this going on, that she's the focus of it and she's the one making it happen.
Sorry, I thought I saw a bug. So yeah, it's kind of coming out from her.
Yeah.
I see.
Due to her turmoil. Especially because you have to remember, Captain Jeffrey died a year later.
Oh, that's true.
So he may not have been very well.
No.
I don't know what it was that he died of, so he could have been sick.
Could have been.
If you look at things, well, he could have had dementia, he could have had Alzheimer's maybe, which would make someone behave erratically. He was already an army man. Soldiers were going about the house all the time. If he had any form of PTSD, that might have been aggravated by the presence of soldiers.
Yeah, very much so.
I'm not saying any of that is true. I have no idea. But, depending on what was wrong, you don't know how someone might behave.
Yeah, there's all things to consider, aren't they?
There's a lot that we don't know. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Rather than actually speculate.
Yep.
After Charles investigated and reported back to the SBR with his findings, another investigator took an interest in the place.
And went, they're both gullible. I'm going to do it right.
Kinda. Harry Price.
Harry Price, attorney at law.
And no, that's Harry's Hope and Hole.
Oh, apologies.
This is Harry.
Harry Price, PI.
Harry's Hope and Hole.
Oh, there's no hope for me.
You didn't even mean that. Yes, Harry Price. We've talked about Harry Price before.
It kind of sounded familiar.
We've actually talked about him a couple times.
Have we?
He is a recurring figure on the podcast.
One of our core characters.
He was the one who investigated Helen Duncan for fraud.
Oh, well, we like Harry Price.
That was Harry Price. But he wasn't entirely a skeptic, which we're going to get into. He was the one who investigated Helen Duncan. He's the one who was paying her to perform the seances so that he could prove that she was lying. That was him. And he was also part of the Magic Circle, which we talked about in our Balakan episode. That was when we talked about him a second time. He had an interest in illusion and magic. I think he was one of the people who wrote that book that basically detailed all the ways that people fraudulently do illusions or do seances and things. He wrote the book, and all of the spiritualists bought the copies and burned them.
Yeah.
This is him. This is his book.
Good guy.
Just to give you a bit of flavour as to who we're talking about here.
I like it. We like Harry Price.
Well, we do. You might like him a little bit less after this, though. Perchance. Because it gives a bit more nuance to his character.
Okay.
I think. By the time that he came upon Pitmilly House, Harry Price was already very successful and very well known for all the reasons we talked about. Excuse me. But he had also written his book by this point, which is one of the things that he's most well known for, The Most Haunted House in England.
Mm-hmm.
He had written this, published it, and it was very successful. It was all about Borley Rectory.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Because we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Sensational. Pretty big success. He rented out the rectory. He lived there for like a year and then he wrote about it. And it seems like he was kind of lining up Pitmilly House as the most haunted house in Scotland.
Ah, I see. Finances come into play again.
Now, see, he didn't say this. He didn't talk about it this way anywhere. But when you look at what I'm about to tell you, you can kind of see it coming together. He referred to Pitmilly House as Poltergeist Manor in another one of his books called Poltergeist over England, which we saw at Armchair Books in Edinburgh, and I didn't buy it.
Did we?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Remember, we were in that back part, and either you or Struan picked it out and showed it to me, and I'd heard about it. Because remember I said, I have Poltergeist over Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't buy it, and...
No, it's come up.
And I'm upset about it.
That is upsetting. Awesome secondhand bookshop in Edinburgh. If you're passing through,
check it out. It's incredible. And that's a lesson to always just buy the book.
Always buy the book.
I left with like 9 that day, but I should have bought another one.
ABB. Always buy the book.
Yeah. So if you're in Armchair Books, Poltergeist over England was in there. You can pick it up for yourself because I was stupid and I didn't.
Pick it up for yourself and then give it to my wife for her birthday. It's at the end of this month.
No. In this book, Poltergeist over England, Harry Price dedicated a chapter to Pitmilly Manor, but he didn't refer to it by name. He called it Poltergeist Manor.
So how do we know that it was definitely Pitmilly?
Oh, I think because he did investigations and things, and there were documents with the SPR that showed that that's what he was talking about.
I see.
And a lot of the details match up. I'll tell you in a second. You can tell that it's Pitmilly.
Cool.
Based on the release of other documents. He was pretty convinced by the evidence and what he was told. He was also told Gilbert Hole's story and wrote about it. So this is another place that the matchstick story is appearing, which is one of the reasons we know that it's Pitmilly House. If you're with me.
I'm with you.
But apparently Price never visited Pitmilly. So he wrote about it extensively. He was touting it as Poltergeist Manor. He was so convinced by it. But he never actually went himself.
Man, who would write and talk about somewhere they've not visited?
We can't go to Pitmilly. It doesn't exist anymore.
We'll jump in the canoe of time. Gondola of time.
The canoe of time.
Well, I said that, I was like,
crazy.
No. Weirdly, I had a picture of it in my head and couldn't find the name.
He didn't go, but it should be noted that he died in 1948. So it may have been he never had time.
Well, yes. A fair reason.
Right? He was sort of lining everything up to establish Pitmilly as a proper haunted house. It might not be entirely relevant. I felt that it was. Price had a Rolls Royce. He was very wealthy and had a pretty lavish lifestyle. So I kind of take that to be someone who would enjoy a fresh round of success.
Yeah.
Get based on success that had come before.
Back in the limelight. Yeah, that's...
You know?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Obviously, that's my opinion. I don't know that.
Yeah.
He's a man with a Rolls Royce. A newspaper or a magazine called American Weekly released an article about Pitmilly House, again without actually naming it, in 1942. So the same year that the Harry's article came out. But no one was completely sure how they got the story or who had leaked it to them.
Oh, okay.
Because like Harry's went and visited himself, so they knew that was coming. But American Weekly in another country, there should have been no way that they knew about it. Because his article was released in Psychic Science, so it's a very niche publication.
Yes. Psychic Science. It just doesn't make sense.
I can show you the the article, if you like. It's quite cool. But no one really knew how they had found it at all. Some people believe that Price leaked the story because he was interested in it and its future. He leaked the story about Pitmilly to kind of prime the public.
I was just thinking that.
For the release of his future book.
Just to get some buzz going, isn't it?
Oh, there's this haunted mansion in Scotland with this poltergeist. Harry Price has gone there and here's his book, you know, setting it up so people are aware that there's this poltergeist manor.
Yeah.
Absolutely no proof of this, to be clear. It's just a theory.
Yes. Well, there's definitely like good weight to that theory being true.
There are mixed motivations for the interest in this place.
Yeah.
The article was called "No Rest in the Mansion, Mean Plot of Incendiary Spooks."
Incendiary. Good word.
Right? And the article, it was quite off. It made a lot of claims about Captain Jeffrey, even though he was dead by that point.
Oh.
They claimed that Captain Jeffrey had fully believed in ghosts and that he was haunting the place and he was responsible for the activity there because he was coming back from the dead to prove that ghosts were real because he had believed in ghosts when he was alive.
That is a hell of a claim.
Yeah.
Since it just doesn't seem like anyone else has said that.
No, and it's never, like, he's dead. He's only just dead. That's very insensitive. How about you just leave him alone?
Yep.
You know? Don't like that. I'm wondering if the story about it being Captain Jeffrey came from the previous claim made by his wife in one of the articles that he had seen ghosts in other houses they lived in. And she kind of believed that he was psychic based on what he had experienced.
Yep.
But this isn't in all of the sources I've looked at. But I do wonder if the story's been leaked in a kind of unsavory way. Someone latched onto that detail and went, "Oh, there's this."
It sounds like someone wanted to write a good story, not report a story.
Even the way it was reported was kind of in bad taste because it came with an illustration.
Oh, yeah.
And the illustration was this super scary gothic manor because obviously they didn't publish the name.
Yep.
Super gothic manor. And then they have like the man of the house that you can kind of tell is supposed to be Captain Jeffrey. He's like kilted and he has the pipe and the illustration kind of implies that it's him and he's the cause of it all. So they're definitely going for an angle with it.
Yeah. They're trying to sell a story.
Yeah, which is what this seems to me. So if it's come to the press through Price, that's a real problem.
Yes, big time. But no evidence?
No, just speculation. That he cited the article in a footnote, I think, to his chapter in his book.
Oh, yeah.
Which came out in 45, but I don't remember. So he knew the article existed.
Yes.
But speculation. Are you following me? I know there's been a lot.
Yes.
Do you want me to re-explain anything?
No.
Okay.
Let's just keep on going.
Okay. If you have questions, you can ask me.
I will do.
When the house became a hotel in 1947, people continued seeing some strange stuff, even though the Jeffreys were gone. I mentioned an interview that Mrs. Elliot gave last episode. She's the one who took on the hotel, turned it into a hotel. And in that article, they talked about the presence of the Green Lady. With no detail as to who she might be. But they're referencing the haunting in this article about the hotel. So it's obviously widely known and talked about.
Yeah.
But in the article, they say, one surviving member of staff of Pitmilly House Hotel recalls one of her colleagues going out onto the lawn in the moonlight to do a little dance to try and persuade gullible guests at their bedroom windows that the ghost, as advertised, was out and about. But the spectre didn't manifest, nor did the expected carloads of well-heeled foreign tourists in search of spooks.
Oh no, that is tragic. Oh. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. Out in the grass, just like with a sheet over their head.
I'm assuming it was quite the show.
Oh no.
But my point bringing that up is that it was obviously well known enough that they're leaning into it.
Well, that's true. Mm-hmm.
And using it to try and sell beds.
Yeah. I've said I'd do it. If I had a hotel that was haunted, I would lean all the way into it being haunted.
Right? Pool house, hit us up.
Your partner.
Hit us up. We will make it the haunted attraction of your dream. Mainly because I'm sure people will just want to be there when Kieran's there just to hear him complain.
Hear me sleeping soundly, I think.
So yeah, that's a thing that happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just tragic. That's hilarious.
But it really builds up the reputation of this place.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was big in the media.
Yeah, in the right circles, people knew. It'd be very strange going to stay at a hotel and only finding out once you're there. If someone asks, like, "Ooh, are you here because you've heard about the ghost?" What ghost? And then they tell you that it's a super haunted hotel.
Well, I mean, bring it up again, but at Pool House, they used to deny anything was wrong. They used to, because it was a luxury hotel when it was running as one. They don't have people staying anymore, but they used to have guests complain about things, and they had to be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, like we'll fix it," but they never said anything.
Yeah, that's true enough. Not quite deny. I feel like if they were asked, they would have said.
No, not deny, but they're not going to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to run a business.
Yeah.
That's more what I'm saying, that it just, they don't always lean into it. They're not going to raise it as a possibility. They just want to do a good job. Run a good hotel.
Just what you want to do.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. During its time as a hotel, they also reported as a supernatural activity, paranormal haunting, alcohol going missing.
I mean, that's probably not a ghost.
What's weird though is that the alcohol would go missing, but the bottles would still be sealed.
No, that's more clever.
Right? So they'd be completely closed, like they're untouched, but there's nothing in them.
Yeah.
And there was no feasible way that it could have been opened and emptied. Which is more strange.
That is more strange.
But the story of my dad stealing all my granny's marzipan comes to mind, even though that's a bit different to a bottle.
Do tell.
Well, when he was younger, he was an absolute fiend for marzipan and used to buy it in these blocks wrapped in foil.
Yep.
And my granny makes the most beautiful Christmas cake. It's just the best. It's so good. And traditional Christmas cake is a fruit cake with a layer of marzipan and then a layer of icing. So when she was making her Christmas cake, she bought a block of marzipan. Dad's a fiend for it and is just a bit of a reprobate. So when he learned that she had bought the marzipan for the cake, he used to go into the cupboard and he would take off just like a little sliver of marzipan and then he would fold it all back exactly the way it had been.
Oh, yeah.
To make it look like it was still a full block. And one year he did such a good job that my granny went to marzipan the cake, picked the block off the shelf and just scrunched the wrapper because he had eaten the whole fucking thing. But I'd managed to fold it back to look as if it was still full. And he got an absolute rollicking. So it can be done.
Well, it can be done.
But a block of marzipan is different to a bottle.
Yes, because it's clearer to open and shut.
Yes, but the story came to mind.
Yeah.
To prove that if you have the will, you can get it done.
You can.
Granny loves that story.
Yeah, she's told us that one.
I think she finds it funny now. I don't think she found it very funny at the time.
I bet she was ripping at the time.
It's just thieving.
And like 4 days before Christmas, and you have to try and find some marzipan at the shop.
All that being said, we have all of this kind of questionable evidence from its time as a hotel. But one of the guests who stayed there, Sir Robert Webber, had a bit of a rough stay.
Okay.
And I think Lauren McIntyre, I think that's where I got this from, he wrote about it. On his first night in Pitmilly, Sir Robert was awakened by the noise of drawers being opened and his underwear scattered over the floor, though he was the only occupant of the bedroom. He did not tell his experience to anyone in the morning, lest they think him odd.
Yep, I get that.
On the second night, he was disturbed by a noise, and when he opened his bedroom door, found his chauffeur standing in the passage, staring terrified at the wall, on which flames were racing along.
Oh my God.
Though leaving the wall unmarked, as if nothing had been there.
That's terrifying.
He left Pitmilly House the next day, but told only myself about his experience. I got him fixed up in the Russex Hotel for the rest of his holiday. So I think this is Mrs. Elliot speaking.
I see.
But I think the quote comes from Lauren McIntyre's book. My script is patchy because I was sick. What do you think about that?
Whoa, that's wild.
Terrifying.
It definitely it definitely got taken up a notch.
Right?
Oh my god, someone scattered my pants everywhere. That's inconvenient.
So that's embarrassing. I'm not going to tell anyone about that one.
God, it's not going to literally...
Oh shit, the hotel's on fire. This place has famously been on fire before.
Yeah. Followed by, oh no, it's not on fire. That was nothing.
Awful.
You know, it's one thing to see a little flash of dress and then deny you've seen a ghost. It's quite another thing to see a whole wall burst into flames.
With someone else who saw it too.
Yeah, to be like, that's probably nothing though.
Ghost flames. Probably just a trick of the light.
Nah, it's probably just my imagination. It's probably just that absinthe I had for breakfast.
So, Sir Robert Webber, you fiend for the absinthe, you. But yeah, I thought it was quite creepy, especially because he just left.
That's pretty creepy.
They then had to put him up somewhere else because he had such a bad time.
Very similar to Pool House.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just flames that aren't really there. Terrifying.
Terrifying.
What I thought was interesting was the Money Pennies, you know, the family from way earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They were really surprised when they read the reports coming out of Pitmilly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. There's a letter that exists that Charlton wrote to his daughter.
Uh-huh.
And he's heard about the hauntings and he's telling her about them. And he's really surprised. So this is news to them.
Yep.
He says, the most extraordinary thing has happened at the old house in Fife. The people who bought it some years ago have been subject to a series of happenings that for the time being drove them from the mansion. Apparently, as soon as anyone left the bedroom, any water left in the ewer was poured on the bed. Furniture piled up in the middle of the room. All portraits of the owner were smashed, and finally fires broke out in 20 rooms at the same time in broad daylight. The owner claimed £400 damage from the insurance company. I don't think they did, but it was misreported.
Yep.
The fire brigade had to be called in. The company said they were satisfied the fires were caused by some agency, but no one in the house could be suspected, and finally it was put down to some supernatural agency.
Crazy.
They wanted to know, the press, if I knew anything of that sort, but I could not enlighten them in any way, except that there was a supposition there was a ghost about somewhere. But since my grandfather went there, no one has seen or heard anything except fancy on the part of someone. The owner got the damages claimed. So that's him writing to his daughter about where they used to live. And I feel like the tone is precisely how you would gossip about the people who bought your house.
Yeah.
You'll never guess. You know that old house we used to live in? Haunted as fuck.
Can you believe that? And they converted the downstairs bathroom into a pantry.
Oh, so gauche. But you get what I mean? That's exactly how you would talk about it if it was news to you.
It absolutely would be. And it is very, like, gossipy in tone.
Mm-hmm.
And just writing out, like, can you believe?
But he's writing about a lot of the things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
A lot of the activities the same. I think I forgot to say earlier that the water being poured on the beds was common. They would find that in every room that had a full pitcher of water.
Is that what a ewer is?
Yeah, it would just be poured out. So, you know, when talking earlier about them washing their face, you'd have a big pitcher of water that you'd pour into a bowl.
Pour in a bowl, yep. I'm with you.
So that would be poured on the bed.
Oh.
Like someone peed there.
I know. That's convenient.
And yeah, they're talking, or Charlton's talking about the insurance claim. And he mentions that there was rumours of a ghost, but not since his grandfather.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting, because that means historically people were talking about it being haunted before.
Well, I was curious that he wasn't like doesn't this all sound like what happened when we were there? Now it's going public or something.
No, nothing. And the press got in touch with him and he's like, no, don't know what to tell you.
Do I think my old house was haunted? No. No? Oh.
So, well, maybe a bit when my granddad was there, but that's it.
That's it. He was crazy.
I thought it was so interesting reading that
Yeah.
and hearing it from such a different perspective, but also something that sounds so intensely relatable. It was, you know, that thing where you talk about the compression of time,
Yep.
where people in the past were really no different from you.
Mhm.
I got that hardcore at the start of this. Like, you're never going to guess what. I heard my mum's voice in my head, actually. You're never going to believe it.
Wait till I tell you. Love it.
But yeah, they were surprised. They were surprised at the claims that were coming out of their old family home,
Yeah.
especially because they had lived there for such a long time.
So that's definitely suggests there's a little bit of mania going on.
Well, especially given the time, because poltergeists were everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about poltergeists. There's a good book called The Haunting of Alma Fielding by Kate Summerscale. If you're interested in this phenomenon, highly recommend. But everyone was talking about poltergeists. It was a big thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on.
Yes.
Lots of differing opinions, conversation, evidence.
Mhm.
I hope I have communicated that well,
You have indeed.
because it's very much not one-sided. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the house was demolished. We can't check it out. But what caused the haunting or the activity, if there was something there at all?
Well, I want to come back to the daughter.
We are going to. I have theories. I'll give you your chance because I think I know what you're going to say. But we have to do it at the right time, Kieran.
Yes, okay.
We have a script. We should stick to it. There was a theory posited in Lauren McIntyre's book. You should read it because he's better at this than I am. And I'm curious what you think of this one.
Hit me.
He says, one tradition in the Jeffrey family is that Alison Jeffrey, who was the captain's wife,
Mhm.
ordered the gardener to fell the tree. He's talking about a tree in the garden, so as to admit more light into the public rooms,
Mhm.
perhaps angering the supernatural presence of a former resident of the mansion, a tree lover.
Interesting theory.
Chop down important tree, ghost unhappy at felled tree, haunting.
Says you burned your house down. Seems a pretty
Cut my tree, I'm going to cut your house down, bitch.
seems a pretty logical 3-step process.
Right.
Done.
I think so.
I have.
Before you get too scoffy and too up yourself, consider what just happened with the Sycamore Gap tree down in Northumberland.
Yes.
Little shit goes along and chops it down for no good reason. Hugely significant tree, historically significant, culturally significant, very meaningful to a lot of people. Little shit cuts it down. Little shit cuts it down.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all of that and then tell me that spirits would never be angry at a chopped down tree.
Well, yeah. I hadn't heard of this tree either till Ailey told me about it.
True. But we've talked about it since.
It's in a little gap on Hadrian's Wall. It's an ancient tree.
It was. It's not there now.
Oh, there, right enough.
But you know what's really sweet?
What?
Apparently another little boy went and planted a new one.
Oh.
There's a little baby sycamore tree planted nearby. I thought it was the cutest thing.
That is very cute.
But yeah, the 16-year-old took a chainsaw and cut down this ancient sycamore tree.
I know. What's that about?
But using it as an example.
Yes, that would be upsetting. Yeah, okay. But enough to raise the dead? I don't know.
Depends on the tree.
It's not doing much for me.
Depends on the tree.
Depends on the tree.
Okay, second theory. I guess I kind of hesitate to call it a theory, but we should talk about it. Is that it really was Captain Jeffrey, even though some reports of the haunting predate his death.
Oh, well, that's what got me when you were talking about the American Weekly. So it's his ghost. I'm like, but he was seeing the ghost, or he was like ill while his wife was being haunted.
Mm-hmm. Because he died in 41.
Yeah.
But the first journalist, Harry's, he visited in 40.
He was 40, wasn't he? So yeah.
Don't know about that one, but I want to be thorough. So even if I don't believe it, we should talk about it.
You got to bring it up anyway. I'm going to shit on them all anyway, so we might as well shit on all of them.
Third, it was all the Jeffreys. All the time. They did everything. They set the fire that nearly destroyed their home. And nearly killed their maid. I don't think I told you that.
No.
One of the members of staff, she was 83. She nearly died. They had to carry her out of the building because she couldn't get out herself.
Oh my God.
So I think that is in the column of it absolutely wasn't the Jeffreys.
No.
Because she had been working for them for years. They were very close. And they had to carry her and rescue her out of the burning building.
Yes.
You're not going to do that.
No, you're not going to do that. And you're not going to, if you're wanting to burn it down for insurance money, like fully burn it down, you're not going to do it during the day when the fire brigade can come and put it out.
You're certainly not going to do it in a way that people look at the cause of the fire and go, don't know what caused that.
Well,
you're going to do it like, oh, this spilled coal and the curtains caught fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe that one from the fire. I believe the Jeffreys could have been like fucking about a bit for some of it. Like some of the smashed stuff and things being thrown. They could have been smashing stuff and throwing things.
Which seems weird because it was expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know why you just trash your own stuff.
Don't trash your parents' stuff. That's different.
Oh, okay. I see what you're laying down.
Yep. So, yeah, maybe like some truth, but that's not an absolute theory. They definitely didn't burn their own house down.
But then more than one of these could be true at the same time.
That's true. Apart from the one about cutting down a tree. Or it'd be the ghost of Captain Jeffrey.
Look, I am being very open-minded and presenting you a lot of effort. The very least you can do is be civil.
I shall try.
Fourth theory.
Yep.
Has to do with little Mary Jeffrey.
Okay.
So I have a theory lined up. Would you like to share your thoughts, finally, after 2 whole episodes, about little Mary Jeffrey?
Well, I think the theory you're going to present is that she was very troubled and very unhappy, and then her unhappiness kind of like manifested itself into these things happening, because that was a similar theory for the Socky poltergeist, if I'm remembering correctly.
You are.
Whereas I think she was unhappy and troubled and was so like lashing out. Like, because you said her dad wouldn't let her join a boarding school.
Her mum wouldn't.
Apologies. Her mum wouldn't let her join a boarding school. So then she was smashing up all the pictures of the family because she disliked her family because they were making her do things she didn't want to do, you know? Throwing things at your brother. Everyone's done that, you know?
You do that even if you like your brother.
Exactly. And then like hiding so you don't get in trouble also makes sense. Especially if you can blame it on a ghost, even better. So, yeah, I think a lot of it was her. Not the fires. The fires will always have a question mark in my head.
Well, it's so dangerous. And it happening in all these rooms at the same time.
Yeah.
I just don't know how someone would do that. So it makes it difficult for me to say someone set those.
Well, I feel you would need some sort of device to set that many fires off in a top corner of a room at the same time.
In wartime.
Yeah.
So I really like your theory that she was upset. She was pretty sad during her time at Pitmilly. She was stuck there because her mum wouldn't let her go off to school. So she didn't have any friends.
Well,
she wasn't allowed to leave.
Yeah.
So she was lonely.
Yeah, because you had this big house surrounded by lands, not surrounded by other houses with pals you can visit.
Well, you've no one there your own age.
No.
You're there with your mum that won't let you do things, that's sort of clinging to you. It's not nice. But yes, you brought up the Socky poltergeist, which I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of the Socky poltergeist, young girl, upset at life changes and circumstances. Inexplicable things happen around her that no one can explain, but seem to be related to her emotions and her struggle. Theory goes, Mary was the source of the poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
But not the perpetrator. So she's not doing it on purpose.
Yes.
But we talked before about the theory that exists that poltergeist activity isn't done by the undead. You're not being haunted. It's like an external manifestation of turmoil.
Yeah.
And frustration and upset.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly prevalent in young girls, teenage girls. So there are a lot of similarities between the two.
Yeah.
And they happened 40 years apart.
It's interesting.
I'm not mad at the theory. Especially because there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of evidence of a haunting before the Jeffreys moved in.
Well, that plays into that part as well, doesn't it?
Like there's mention of this green lady, but usually I can find something to do with the legend behind her and why she's there.
Uh-huh.
because I come across green ladies as often as, I don't know. Say something witty, Kieran. I don't know.
I come across green ladies as often as I forget what metaphor I'm trying to make.
Boom. Exactly. They're a dime a dozen. I see them all the time.
Mhm.
And usually there's something to do with the place that they're haunting that backs up why they're there. But here there's nothing.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. And I'm a searcher. I will do my damnedest. I couldn't find a thing. But when the Jeffreys arrive, that's when it seems to kick off.
Yeah.
So I kind of like this as a theory.
I'm not mad about it as a theory. Because I'm not a big believer in ghosts and that kind of thing.
Apart from that one. That one time.
But
I'm going to make a new merch t-shirt and it's going to say, Kieran saw a ghost and all I got was this stupid t-shirt. That's 3 merch ideas in one episode.
One episode. I should be writing these down.
We're going to be rich. Going to do it. If you want me to make that t-shirt, you have to tell me because I will do it.
Oh.
And then everyone will wear it and it would be great.
Well, if I see somebody out and about wearing that t-shirt, I'm going to piss myself laughing.
Wouldn't it be wonderful?
Oh.
Kieran saw a ghost and all I got was the stupid t-shirt. I'm going to do it. Watch this space.
I like it as a theory.
I'm not saying it's like 100% definite this definitely happened, but I think I remember talking about it in the Saki episode that I'm really intrigued by that as an explanation. I think it's more concrete than is the ghost of the dead out to get you.
Yeah, I think so. There's something much more physical about it, weirdly.
But equally, I think it's fair to say that she was really unhappy there. She could have been lashing out at mum and dad.
It seems quite likely.
Her brother was 9 years older than her.
That's a big age gap.
I think 9. I think he was born in 1915 and she was born in 1924.
Okay.
That's just off the top of my head, though. I might have that wrong. So they might not have been close.
No, but by 1940, she is like
16.
a teenager. Yeah.
So she falls into that window.
Yeah.
And I say 9-year age gap, they might not have been close. India and I are supremely close, and there's 7 years between us. So
yeah,
that might not be true.
Not necessarily. Well, the easier communication and stuff now.
Yeah, that's very true. That's right, because he went off to war, so.
And then it adds to her loneliness if her older brother is left.
So yeah, if she's acting out.
Yeah.
I'd believe that too.
Could be both.
Well, my final theory.
Final theory?
There's one more.
Okay.
Earthquakes.
Oh. Well, that would make sense.
I knew you'd be surprised by that. That's why I saved it.
You caught me off guard. Caught me off guard.
Turns out that where Pitmilly used to be is pretty close to something called the Ochil Fault.
Oh.
It's a fault line. And in an SPR paper by G.W. Lambert, he posits that the area was particularly earthquake heavy between 1936 and 1940.
That's unusual.
Which might explain the phenomena that people were experiencing.
Yeah.
And the fact that it trailed off after 1940. Remember, people are talking about things falling off mantelpieces. The portraits are wiggling about. Things are falling. Things are rolling. Things are breaking.
Billiard balls moving erratically.
Things are going missing. Things are falling down the stairs.
Trying to hold down a chest of drawers that's rattling. That would do it.
You see?
Yep. Weird.
Mm-hmm. And this was an SBR paper, which I kind of appreciate that that's where this information comes from, because it has nothing to do with the paranormal.
No, I appreciate that too. That's so bizarre. There was just like a 4-year window where it was just really earthquakey for a while.
Yeah, it was just particularly bad looking at the data.
That's so strange.
Because we don't get serious earthquakes in Scotland. We get sort of minor tremors every now and then. And it always feels really weird because it doesn't belong.
Yep. I remember one house in Edinburgh fell down in an earthquake.
Oh, yeah?
While we were at school. Because it was surrounded by all the houses that were old houses made of stone. They were all totally fine. And the one new house crumbled. which was kind of funny.
Sucks to be them.
Yeah.
I remember an earthquake that happened in Ullapool, and that was really weird.
I think you mentioned that.
I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before.
I think
actually.
so.
It's come up.
Mm-hmm.
Because my granddad was staying. I remember talking to him about it in the morning.
Yep.
Weird.
So yeah, so you, in the 30s, if an earthquake happened, were happening regularly, you wouldn't know what the fuck was going on.
Not really. And I feel like it wouldn't have been such common knowledge where the faults are. And, you know, that I'm hesitant to say things like, oh, people had no idea, because that could be super disrespectful. Like maybe they did know a lot about geology and fault lines and stuff like that. But
I think a lot would have been known, but you couldn't, like, if an earthquake happened right now, within an hour, we could open up our phones and there'd be news articles about it,
Yeah,
explaining what it was and why it happened.
unless you had experts, you might not attribute it to earthquakes.
Yeah, so if they're quite localized, you would need an expert in the area to pick it up, but then to also report it to, like, a radio station.
And I guess document the pattern.
Yeah.
Because maybe, depending on what happened and how much you felt it, you might not put it together that, oh, they were both earthquakes.
No, not necessarily.
I guess. Pure speculation, I have no idea, but yeah, maybe. And maybe they wouldn't broadcast that it was earthquakes if it was wartime.
Well, I'm thinking if it's from 36 to
40.
40, there's a war breaking out. If you are a geologist and you're like, whoa, there's been loads of earthquakes in this little area of Scotland, and you talk to the BBC and you're like, this has happened, they'll just be like, so? Well, do you want to report it? Like, oh, we'll run like a little bit in a newspaper one day, but it's not going to be headline news in like 1939, is it?
Maybe they'd squash it down to keep morale up.
Maybe. There's a world war and we have earthquakes now.
Oh, we have earthquakes now. What? Are you kidding me?
So even if it was reported, you then have to have caught it.
Yeah, that's very true.
You have to have been listening to the radio to catch the news for them to report it. To then put it together.
It's tricky, isn't it? It's a funny thing.
Yeah, so I can see you would totally miss it and just be like, what the hell was that?
I guess just because it was over 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was obviously documented because they can look back at it.
Yeah, so somebody knew what was happening for the SBR to be like, this was unusual.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, good theory though.
Right? I thought it was good. I was very pleased with that one. There's a lot of mystery. It's kind of like Ballican House. I think because you can't go there anymore, the house doesn't exist. I couldn't get access to the original SBR files. I tried. I managed to get a fair amount of the stuff that they've published online, but I couldn't get access to the original stuff. The insurance documents don't exist. Everyone's dead.
Yeah.
A lot of it's completely unknown and we just can't verify very much, it feels like.
And now it's not there anymore. So you can't even like go and check.
I did say that.
I'm going to say it again.
Yeah, it's completely gone. There's nothing left. There's just fields now of what used to be a pretty grand stone house. A movie was made inspired by the case in 1947. It's a very old movie and it's called Things Happen at Night.
Wow.
Which I kind of want to watch.
I know,
I think that could be really funny.
Pretty entertaining, I think.
But I think the mystery remains.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing you can do.
What a question mark.
But that's the story of Pitmilly House.
Wow. That was a journey. Thank you so much for telling us.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Getting a little spooky.
I hope you liked it. I hope you appreciated waiting for the spooky episode because this is quite long given that this is just spooky stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been a really long episode had we put it all together. Which we are known for, but I'm trying to have mercy on you this season.
Me or the listener?
Both.
Well, that was excellent. Very spooky.
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy that.
I wasn't sure how you'd take this. I guess we'll talk more about it in the blether. I don't want to talk a lot about it here. I just didn't know how you'd take it.
Yeah.
I was hoping you would enjoy the tale.
I did. I enjoyed being here for the journey. I always do.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for listening once again.
If you're interested in more from us, we're about to hop on over to Patreon.
Hell yeah, we are.
For a little blether. So you should come too.
You should click the link in the description or Google Generally Spooky History Patreon or go to patreon.com/generally spooky.
We have 3 different tiers.
Yeah, we do.
3.
Of support that you can offer to help us keep the lights on.
We are posting really funny TikToks and Reels every day through October. You should check us out on Instagram, TikTok, wherever. They're really funny.
They're really funny.
And we have merch.
And you can review us. And we should probably wrap this up. You're probably just sick of this by now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.